But
So, yeah. So let me ask you this: what forbidden song that you have not sung yet is one that you were dying to sing on stage?
well, there's two that I really like that I would love to sing. They're both off Omega Wave. One is Dragging My Casket, and the other one is Swine.
Swine. I was hoping you would say that. That's like my second favorite song off of that album.
It's such a good song. But those are two that at some point I'd love to do. I mean, like, that being like my favorite Forbidden album. I mean, God, they got so many. Overthrow, Hypnosis. There's just some really good stuff. Forsaken at the Gates.
Yep. First track.
Yeah, in the beginning, when we were trying to put together songs, I had a list of songs off of all the albums that I was supposed to start learning, including stuff off Distortion and Green. But of course, as things happen and we put sets together, I learned, you don't have to learn all that other stuff because it's not going to be played anytime soon. So
that's interesting. Have you sang anything off of Distortion?
No, I started learning two songs. I started learning Rape and Feed the Hand.
Okay.
Those were two that I was given initially.
Yeah.
And I started learning, and then, I gave up on them because we weren't going to be playing them anytime in the next year or two. So I was like, all right, well, the time comes, if we pull one out, I'll learn it along with the rest of the guys, because, Dan would have to learn it, Chris would have to learn it.
Yeah.
And Craig and Matt would have to brush up.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about your solo album for a minute. That second solo album, I thought, was a lot different and, a lot better than the previous one. How was that received for you? Because I felt like for the first time, because the first album felt like it didn't exist. But the second one, it felt like I actually saw a lot of it in my timeline, my social media feed, and I thought the record was actually very good.
Thank you. The first album. So the difference between the two is, even though the first album is a Skinner album, at that time it was a band called Skinner. It wasn't me as a solo, and that was from the fallout of Imagika. Basically, I had left and I actually joined a progressive metal prog band, and it was all like atmospheric and math metal, just really crazy stuff, because I wanted to do something more power prog, because I'm a big fan of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The guitar player that was the second guitar player in Magic at the time asked me to dinner, and then he's like, "Hey, bro, I know you're not in Magic anymore, but I'd still like to write with you. I'd like to do something." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm down." I was keeping everything wide open, because this turned into a really bad split when I left Imagika in 2010. It was not nice. It was not friendly. And then next thing you know, they auditioned a couple singers that butchered everything that I wrote, from what I heard. And then the band just fell apart. And then next thing you know, the bass player came my way. And so I had the guitar player, the bass player. And this is a fun fact. We were at the listening party for Forbidden's Omega Wave in the parking lot when the bass player says, "Dude, we should name the band Skinner." And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not that much of a narcissist. We're not naming the band Skinner." And then they're like, "Oh, we're going to name it Skinner, and it'll piss Steve off," who was the other guitar player that we were all pissed off at the time. So, that band kind of came together. It wasn't a solo band, but they named it Skinner. And that album was very much just here's a different version of Imagika without the core Imagika writer, right? I mean, so it was everybody else. That album did okay for a band that just plays local shows, kind of like a bigger fish in the pond here, but didn't really tour, didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now we fast forward to the second solo album. That one I worked in the background for like 8 years. That is a solo album. That is me picking the songs, the structure, everything, working with various different people to make the album the way I wanted it to sound. And it turned out fantastic. And it was absolutely well received. I did not get one bad review on that. And I was worried because it's got a lot of different flavors to it. And I wasn't sure if everyone would pick up on what I was doing. And what happened was the album got released, and then 3 weeks later, an announcement went out that I joined Forbidden. So that pretty much just swallowed up my 8-year in the making solo album release. And it just pretty much killed it because all the attention went to Forbidden, and then I'd get little sprinkles of, oh, you have this solo album. Tell us about that.
I remember it was really funny. If I remember correctly, the interview that we did the last time was literally like a week and a half before that. And I'll never forget, I put the interview up, and then like it was like 3 days later, the announcement for Forbidden came out, and I was like, man, didn't know anything about that, but but it was cool. I mean, I at least did kind of an addendum and talked about that. But one of the things that's interesting is a lot of these Bay Area bands have really done a great job with a lot of their albums when they came back. Like I said, I thought that the Forbidden album, Omega Wave, I remember getting it and trying to remember if I had Craig on my radio show. I could be wrong, but I believe he might have come on my show back then, and we did an interview for it. But I absolutely love the album. I mean, I still go and listen to that record even today. That's really how great of an album that it is. So pretty interesting though with the solo record, because the solo record was really, really good. It was very well. I mean, the production sounded good. I thought the songs were very good. It was different from the power metal stuff you were doing, and it was obviously not thrash.
Yeah, a little more modern sound than the power metal stuff, and definitely some heavier stuff. But I mean, I am working on the new one right now, and I have about songs for at least 75% of it already, including some of those that were going to be on Niviane's album, but that we're revamping because it doesn't need to have 2 full solo sections now and all this little extra. I like my solo stuff to be a little more streamlined where it can be, and just modern. But I'm excited. People will not have to wait so long anymore for the rest of my solo stuff. I'm always going to be working on it and just keep it going, because it's like you hinted on this in the very beginning of when we were talking. I am doing a thrash band, so there's no need to have another thrash band. You know what I mean?
Correct.
This solo stuff is strictly for me to get out all the stuff that I like to do that I can't do in Forbidden, basically.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.